All right, time to clear your lungs and take a listen. I'm Charlie.
And I'm Cory.
And this week we will be discussing the debut album from Florence and the Machine-Lungs. This was released in 2009, and it's a kind of prelude of sorts to the new release that we'll be discussing next week. But before we get to that, we are going to do this first.
Yeah, man, a little inspiration for next week, and one that I've always loved. I've always been drawn to Florence and her machine here. They get it done. I'm always talking about the machine, but it's not this
You like
machine.
this machine.
Yes, I love this machine. This is a good one. I remember this.
Yeah. Interesting band name. I have some thoughts on that, but we'll get there. But yeah, this band's been around for a while and they're still going. But this is the beginning, and they made a splash pretty quickly with this first album. Florence Welch is the lead singer of Florence and the Machine, in case you don't know. And she floated around for a while before forming this band, but she collaborated with a friend of hers named Isabella Summers, and they just really found something and started writing together, and they got some other real talented musicians, including a harpist, to help elaborate on this sound. That was the most unique aspect of this band, I think, to have a full-time harp player.
For real.
Not the norm at all. And they came up in Britain with this album. This is a British band, in case you didn't know. Want to put that out there. It comes through pretty clearly in their songs, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you there, and we'll touch on it a bunch. But there's definitely we do British performers. We have done British performers throughout.
It's been a while, but we have.
But there's this sense here that I know it's British, but it's not stuck down my throat, and I enjoy that. You know, it's not force fed to me here. But you definitely get a British feel from them, and it is first album too, so they're really showing themselves in a peacocking sense here.
Yes, they are, and they came about this late 2000s into early 2010s. It was, in a way, in terms of images, and artsier era for music. This is the dawn of Lady Gaga. So this new band kind of fit right in with that. And Florence initially got a lot of vocal comparisons to Kate Bush and Tori Amos, which I completely see.
Yeah.
But it was for a newer era of that. And it did get a bit more commercial success than definitely Kate Bush did in the US, at the very least. Florence has had a bigger impact in her prime, at least. And Tori Amos, I from what I understand, always was kind of an underground person. She didn't really cross over to the mainstream in the way that Miss Welch did.
Yeah, early on, she always gave me vibes from Dolores O'Riordan, the lead singer of Cranberries. I always got that from her, and I was a lover of the Cranberries anyway. So that was, looking back, that was probably one of the subconscious listener things that pulled me to her sound. It's just a powerful one.
Yes, and I do want to talk about the band name. Bands often can have a lot of focus on one member, but I think this is pretty clearly designed to center Florence Welch. Her name is in the band's name, front and center. It's very clearly her thing, and not to discredit them, they're all incredibly talented, but they are the machine. They're the backing band for the band, for this primary singer and songwriter. They want to show, they're meant to amplify her. I absolutely feel that's the intention throughout all of this. I mean, I do think you could easily call Florence a solo. She could just as easily be a solo artist with this.
I can see where you're coming from. The sound, and we'll get into it more, but in my opinion, the sound is built for her. I'm with you on that. Whether it be to amplify her or just because the sound is built around her very unique stylings, it's definitely a machine for her. I think that's why I never had any beef with it being Florence and the Machine, or never really paid it much mind. Is more so I thought it was like a beautiful shout out, call out to the boys and girls, rather than just her and a machine.
Yeah, I didn't think it. I know it's not an actual machine, but even in this band's promotional images,
Yeah,
she's the one you see. She's made to stand out, and she when back in the day, this she was the one who the discussion centered on. It was always Florence Welch.
I've seen her live twice too, and I won't say the band is an afterthought in the stage show, but she has a. The first time I saw her wasn't so much; it was just their beautiful sound. But she was the opener for U2, and it was daytime, and it was more of just a subdued daytime light show. But I saw her at a festival not too many years after, and it was a full blown I won't say diva, but a full blown light set. It was a really, really awesome set piece, and she was front and center. And really, that's all you ever saw on the big screens, so to speak.
Yeah, it all focused on Florence. That's what I would expect at one of their concerts, especially in the post Lungs era for them. Because if you saw them a few years after, they had a bit more under their belt.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a debut album. There's not always a ton of tea with the debut albums when it comes to how they all come about, but everybody has to start somewhere. And this is a great beginning, and this is their most popular album today. It sold over 3 million copies worldwide. And the main market for them was the UK, but they did cross over beyond that. Most importantly to them in the United States.
It was all over the radio. I don't know if you remember when this came out, like per se, but it was definitely everywhere. It didn't I mean, it didn't hurt that it was also on Eat, Pray, Love, and that really boosted it as well, or at least one of the heavier American loved singles was.
Yeah. I remember Dog Days Are Over. That was that was a big hit. I may or may not have heard it for the first time on Glee because
That's right. That's right.
that was that was a thing back then. And when they performed it on Glee, the original shot back up the charts. So it had that effect at that point in time. It's weird to think of now, but that was a thing. But the other song I really remember being around from them all the time was actually on the follow-up album, which was Shake It Out. That was I was shocked to find out that it charted pretty low on the Hot 100 actually, because I felt like the song was Shake It Out was at least a top 40 hit, and it was not.
I feel the same way about diving in and learning where a lot of these, even the singles, but the album itself charted. It was like, oh wow, I felt like it was way bigger, but maybe because I just dug it so much.
And it depended what scene you were in. This was not the primary sound of pop in 2009 and 10, but it was a reprieve from that, and I can see where there was definitely an audience for it. And in a way, I would argue this foreshadows the rise of Adele in 2011.
I'm with you there. That's a really cool thought. I like that. It definitely does. It opens a door, I think.
It does. It did show. I think the success of this showed there was an audience for a more organic or rock kind of sound, like not electropop, not the Black Eyed Peas, not Lady Gaga. There was an audience for something that sounded a bit more authentic than all this heavily auto-tuned dance music, as much fun as that could be. But not everybody wanted that. There was definitely a group of people looking for something else, and Florence and the Machine provided that. And even more people ended up wanting it than we realized. We saw that throughout the 2010s, I would say.
Yeah, but we go back to them being the machine for her, and we're going to talk about it, or I'm going to talk about it a bunch, but the way this is laid out musically really speaks to the strengths, or speaks to these awesome pockets of the subconscious listener. Like, these are musicians that are putting together intricate compositions and boosting it up, and I like that it caught fire with people that didn't think they were going to dig it.
And the band's still going strong today, as we'll spoiler alert, you'll be hearing a bit about them next week as well. So they're still a big concert draw, still record. They last put out an album just 2 years ago, still very much active. This is where it all began. And I'm ready to dive right into this one.
Yeah, let's get at it.
All right, so the album begins with the previously mentioned Dog Days Are Over, which I was really surprised to find out was the second single, not the first. That is crazy to think,
Right?
especially in hindsight. But anyway, the song is named after an art exhibition that Florence Welch saw called Dog Days Are Over that she would see just crossing the bridge every day in the late 2000s. So, but it's a really, with all of that, it's this really anthemic tune about just opening up a new door, and that makes it a great album opener. And I've always enjoyed this song. It's kind of one of those songs that at this point it's always kind of been around. I got very used to hearing it. As I said, they did it on Glee, and it was one of those songs that I kind of hadn't heard in a while, but redoing this, I actually thought, this is a really powerful song. On its own, removed from top 40 radio and all of that. And I didn't know this. It got a resurgence just this past year because it was featured in the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which I still have not seen, actually. I would like to.
Great watch, but I mean, they always knock it out of the park, in my opinion, on the soundtracks. And it was
I agree.
It was placed correctly. I love the way he does that, or that team does that. So well done. But yeah, on the Guardians of the Galaxy, pretty wild.
Yeah, but the song was definitely a hit, if you can't tell. It was released twice as a single, first in 2009, then again in 2010. And 2010 is really when it broke out into the US, at least. It made it to 23 in the UK, but it did in the US, it made it to 21. But because it was a multi-format hit, you heard it everywhere. You could hear it just as easily on the adult contemporary as you could on the top 40. So it had an appeal for everybody. It also appealed to the rock and alternative audience just as easily. And I know the video for it was a pretty big deal just because she had such a unique look in it with all these different costumes, and really in keeping with pop music in 2010. That definitely helped her stand out. She managed to be her own person, even in a sea of eccentric images.
Yeah, she did well with that. They did well with that coming into the American eye, in my opinion. I'm right with you. As far as this being an opener, though, it's definition opener. It's so strong. It's pizzicato harp, from the pizzicato harp accompaniment to the beating bass drum. For me, that is really reminiscent of this Japanese taiko, which is like deep rooted kind of drum. This song is a roller coaster, man. Like you said, multifaceted across the board. I remember it running on our local rock station like nobody's business. And at first, people being like, this is out of place, but then a lot of heads, like we were talking about before, really getting down with this. And there is a very, very deep-rooted musicality here in their sound. It's another reason why I love it as an opener, is because this one pretty much sums up a lot of their techniques and a lot of their stylings together. It doesn't necessarily, and I'm happy that this is the case, but it doesn't, for me, necessarily spoil any musical surprises that we'll get throughout, but it really lets us know who they are as a band. And I enjoy that. It's a powerful opener, and it's made the test of time, in my opinion.
Yes. Yes, we've just seen it, and it's now close to 1 billion streams on Spotify, so it'll be reaching that mark very soon. So
there you go.
Definitely a deserving song of that. But despite this song leaving such a large mark, we still have quite a bit more to go. It's just the first song on the album, so we're going to keep it going with Rabbit Heart, Raise It Up. This is an anthemic tune produced by Paul Epworth, whose name I recognize because of his work with Adele. That's kind of what put them together in my mind. And we'll see him a few times on this album. But Florence Welch explained that this song was something that she was told you need to do something a bit more upbeat, but she was worried it would be inauthentic. But she ended up writing lyrics based on fear, being in an upbeat situation like a live performance. And it has this choral like sound, but it's all overdubs of Florence Welch. She actually stated that the guy mixing it nearly had a nervous breakdown, but it came out beautifully. I mean, this was the third single, made it the number 12 in the UK, didn't cross over to the US quite as much. Obviously, people have heard the song, but I didn't ever hear it on the radio. But I really enjoy it. It is a good anthemic kind of song. And I guess what can you say? Paul Epworth knows how to work with the British divas. That's all I can say. He did his thing here.
Yeah, he does indeed. This one is another composition wow for me. Coming out of the gate on this album, it's just beautiful to hear it. Looking for these wild compositions in life and getting two so early in this album makes me so happy. It's an upbeat composition here, so to speak, but it has this heavy narrative, like you were talking about, of this fear, and I love that. You know, it's almost like go write a love song type of thing from the machine that I love to hate on, and her being like, I got you, here we go, upbeat fear. And I dig it, and it works so well here. Lionheart versus Rabbit Heart narrative is a super powerful one, and it works. It's almost hidden here unless you get a nice good couple of listens, and I like that too. Really well done, number two.
Yes, and we got to keep the ball rolling with a somewhat slower song next, which is I'm Not Calling You a Liar. This is a lost love song with a ghost metaphor, definitely slower than the first two tracks. This one is not one of my favorites here. I am happy to say that we get it one of my lesser favorites here out of the way early on, but I just don't think that the production and lyrical content really fit. And so for me, this song's just a bit of a juxtaposition that doesn't really quite come together like I think they were intending it to.
Yeah, I'm right with you. It looks like a statement piece inside of the listening part of this first album where you're like, okay, this was meant to do this, but unfortunately it doesn't. And for me, that's really bring it down a bit. This one dances on a softer tone, but falls flat in that sense, even though it is trying, in my opinion, to feel like it could explode at any moment. And I understand what I think they were trying to do musically here on an album pacing, but this one just, even with the naked intro over such a powerful statement of I'm not calling you a liar, but don't lie to me, all the way down to I love you so much I'll let you kill me mentality, it falls a tiny bit flat. I'm with you. I wish this was better. It's not a terrible song in any right, but it just unfortunately doesn't do the job it's supposed to 100% here.
Yeah, gotta agree with that. But we're going to kind of keep the horror theme going with the next track, which is How, which is very specifically inspired by werewolves and gothic horror. I have to say, Paul Epworth's an MVP here. He has just these little touches in there that you pick up each time to really amplify this gothic horror theme, which I really appreciate. This is definitely not even close to being my favorite song on the album, but I do think that it's a neat, I wouldn't even say experiment. It has some experimental stuff in it, which I appreciate, but it does work together as a piece and it doesn't overwhelm what we have here, but there is better to come.
Werewolf love song, here we go. I like this song. I love the lyricism throughout this piece. I'm, as you might know, or maybe if you're a first time listener, I'm a sucker for a driving bass drum, but I have to be honest, at this point in the album, I'm getting a little bit too used to it, and it isn't moving me as much here on How. I love, it's really super cinematic as it crescendos to the end, and I dig that. It's a really powerful composition here, and I love how you were talking about the gothic sounds and feelings here, because there is this haunting, almost like a Halloween, like bim 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 boom, this arpeggio behind the final crescendo that just is that little cherry on top. I'm totally with you. It is beautifully done. Unfortunately, this one has a few sounds here on the pacing of this album that I'm like, oh, you might have used that one a bit too much here, from a critical sense.
That is fair. And I feel like the band knew that with where they placed the next track, which is a big shift from where we've gone so far. We're going to go into punk mode with Kiss with a Fist. This was produced by Stephen Mackey of the band Pulp. Rest in peace. He actually passed away last year. I didn't know that. So that was a shame to hear. But this is not a song about domestic violence. Florence had to make that very clear. She basically says it's just about a very toxic relationship and these people like fighting. In her MySpace post, I love this. She said, Leona Lewis's Bleeding Love isn't actually about her bleeding, and this song isn't actually about punching someone in the mouth. So, yes, it's a metaphor, but you gotta use those to make your point. And she does it very well. She actually wrote this when she was only 16 or 17, which is mind-blowing. She wrote it for a previous project she did before this. I'm glad that it ended up here. This was the first single. It made it to 51 in the UK, and it's just... it's a punk rock song. It's a punchy, short and sweet punk rock song. And even though we've definitely not explored that here, you haven't gone into this thinking this is a punk band. They play the part well here. I really enjoy this song, and I still feel like it's very much a Florence and the Machine song. It's punk, their version, and I really appreciate that.
I'm with you on that. It is their version of an English punk song here. And I will start off saying that as a refreshing break, it works super well. It's written super well as far as the lyricism is here. It's a bit off the hard mark as an English punk song for me. I do agree with you. It is their take on it. But unfortunately, and this might be a hot tea take here, I feel like they are a band trying to do English punk and it doesn't set right on its own. If this is taking out of the album as a solo piece, it's a very subpar English punk song. Here, it really works for me because it is this breath. It does still have their sound. And she's still fighting with love, but in a different punk way here. We have these songs, they're all talking about this fight with love. So I'm a little bit torn on this one. As far as it outside of this album, I think it's very, very poor song, but it works very, very well here. Also, this is why, and I don't know if I'm being too harsh, but this is why the American public didn't get her at all, because this as a single falls nowhere in
this was
American
not
radio.
Intended for the American
Understandable,
audience,
but I'm saying it was their first single, so you don't hit an American ear with this.
No, but they weren't trying to, I don't think at all.
Okay.
I really don't. I feel like I think this was only released as a single to radio in the UK. That's what I would think. If they're a British band, they're going to try to break out in their home country first before porting America. And this is still pre-streaming.
I have a hard time thinking this. Well, I mean, you saw where it ended up on the charts, but like, I don't know. As far as an English punk song, it's not my favorite. As far as being on this album where it is, it works pretty well.
It is very odd, especially in hindsight, that this was the debut single for this band, because it's so unrepresentative of them. Even though I like the song, it's not an accurate depiction of what Florence and the Machine is and has ended up being. Not at all.
Yeah, it's cool that it's short. I like, not in a negative way. I like the 2-minute punch here. And again, that's why it works on this album, inside of this album.
Yeah. And that's a good punk songs are short and sweet. They get to the point.
Heard that.
And we're gonna not be quite as punky, but a little bit, with another Mackey produced song, which is Girl with One Eye. Yet she's a fighting girl in this song, and I really like this song too. I like her just as a straight rock singer, not necessarily as your Kate Bush or Tori Amos, the kind of art rock thing. No, she's just being a straight up, like Joan Jett kind of type here. And I think she does that part well too. She's a really versatile vocalist. You think of her so much just being in one realm, but this song shows off her true range, and I really appreciate it for that.
Yeah. Little warning, I'm gonna curse here.
Go
I,
ahead.
I fucking love this song, man. This song kills so much. I will be the first one to say this wasn't a standout track for me back in the day. I don't remember loving this track so much. This track is so freaking good, man. The I'm a sucker for clean sounds, and that clean electric behind her with just a bit of drums is perfect here. This for me, and maybe, well, not maybe, it adds to this love of the song. It reminds me of Daryl Hannah's character from Kill Bill, and it has this Kill Bill tonality with it. So it adds to the story for me, especially the way this narrative plays out in such a hardcore manner. Super hot tea take. This is the peak of her vocals on this album. This is the peak of what she does with her voice for me. I love her range in here. She hits highs that I don't find anywhere else on the album. And again, hot tea take, but I fucking love the way she sings in this song.
It's not a hot tea take to say she sounds great, but the peak, that's a bold claim.
Yeah, I really do. I think this is, for me, the best showing of her vocals on this album.
Okay, I think there's some competition for that coming up, but we'll get there. But first off, we have track 7, which is Drumming Song, produced by James Ford. And she said it's about the electricity that's just unspoken between a couple of people. And she really wanted something with a beat. So the percussion here is really prominent. James Ford did the drumming, and it's killer. The percussion definitely, along with Florence, makes the song. You kind of are going to expect that from a song called Drumming Song. She did manage to do something with a beat. It's a cool song, but it's very clear what they want you to focus on, and it does what it sets out to do. This was the 4th single. This wouldn't have been a single choice for me. I'm not sure. I do like the song, but I'm not sure it's the most single worthy of all the tracks here. And it did okay. It made it to 54 in the UK and 14 in Scotland, and it had a video filmed in Christchurch in Spitalfields, London, which is an Anglican church. And Cory, you may or may not know this. I feel like you might, but if you don't, this song was featured on the soundtrack for EA Sports' 2010 FIFA World Cup South Africa.
Oh, I can believe. Oh, the World Cup South Africa one. I believe you buy that separate. I wonder if I own that one. But yeah, man, EA always puts in the bomb, like, out there tracks. So I'm not surprised. I don't necessarily remember this one from FIFA. There's a lot of tracks that I find from FIFA that I remember, but that doesn't surprise me at all. They always their music team is always spot on each year.
Yeah, the only one I remember from I know the Shakira song. Everybody knew that one. Waka Waka. Everybody knew that one.
That's how I found Tune Yards. No Water in the Water Fountain. That was a FIFA track. There's a lot of them. We could do an episode on FIFA tracks.
Oh,
and
boy.
They got some. They have world sounds. Not to get too far.
Sure
off.
They do.
They do. But as far as drumming song goes, we're back at it on the 7 track. More so for me because this track speaks to a simple musicality inside of a really intricate percussion story, and I dig that. But I can see how it got the. I'm with you. I don't think this is a single, but I can see musically how it got the nod for a single worthy, because the refrain here does a really neat thing, and it keeps it major, which for most of this album, we turn to a minor chord here and there, and it's almost part of their sound. But in the refrain here, we stay on this major, and it hits correct to the ear. It's a neat little piece inside of here that I enjoy. So I can see maybe that's why musically it got picked for a single. It's a cool song, but it's not a single pick here. And I have something a bit to say about that later on, but it's a cool one. Cool track 7. And we're back to their sound. We went to this really neat aperitif of English punk. Then Girl with One Eye slowly creeped us back in with just a bit of guitar and drum and Florence, and now we're back to this really intricate composition sound. And I'm excited to see what comes next.
Yes, and what comes next is our title track of sorts, Between Two Lungs. The first song that Florence wrote herself. She got the title from a pulp book from the 1980s, and it's just about a really good kiss. That's the song. And Florence admitted she was making it all up as she went along. She has a unique style of writing. She's not a trained musician, so she even said she had to come up with her own way of doing it. I can definitely tell this is an early effort of a song, in comparison to the more developed tracks that are here. And it doesn't take me out of the album. I don't feel like it's out of place, but you can tell that other songs were written later after she'd grown a bit and maybe had some guidance. This is not all the way there. You see the inklings of greatness, but she's just getting started here. I'm not quite sure. I'm not sure out of all they had to choose from, I'm not sure this is one I would have put here. Even if it's the title track, I'm not 100% sure I would have.
Wild how close we are on thoughts these days. This one, I'm going to use the word intriguing in a very nice sense as far as it's starting off musically. There is a point very early on when this quote unquote breath gets released from being trapped, and the percussion follows it, and this song has a nice little moment on its own. This is such an early song. You can tell it's early in their writing. And for me, I can't not hear Dog Days inside of here. And I wonder if that, I'm so glad you brought this up because I have it in my notes, but I wonder if that's where it came from. There's a lot of Dog Days here, almost to a point of being redundant. Musically, there's these beautiful, subtle strings, but this one is a out there attempt in my opinion, and I'm with you. It doesn't take me out of the album because it still stands with their sound and it has some moments inside of it, but tough choice for this one here. It doesn't mess up the pacing. That's the weird thing about this song. I don't dislike it, but I dislike it.
I mean, it does kind of stink that it's in between two of the singles on the album. That's a bit that part is a bit strange, even if it doesn't take you out. But I think this the story behind this next song is some proof of Florence's skill as a songwriter and how it developed from Between Two Lungs, because the next track is Cosmic Love, and Florence actually stated that she was the most hungover she'd ever been while writing a song when she wrote Cosmic Love, which, okay, girl, what the hell? Okay, I'd be hurting if I were as hungover as you're saying you are. And you wrote one of your biggest hits while hungover. Like, what? Mind blown. That's some cosmic stuff right there. That's some cosmic stuff right there. And yeah, her and Isabella Summers, they spent time just trying to find the right note. And once they did, they wrote the song in 10 minutes. And Paul Epworth actually noted, like, she came up with these lyrics while laying on the floor and made everybody cry as soon as she sang it, which, and yeah, it's a beloved song. This was the 5th single. In hindsight, crazy it wasn't chosen sooner because of its popularity. Made it to 51 in the UK, top 5 in Belgium and Ireland, didn't chart in the US, but it's certified platinum because it's had a longevity to it, and it's a really good classic modern love song. That's really all I can say about it. I mean, I find the story behind it pretty mind-blowing for how strong of a track it is. That's some real talent there.
I'm in the minority. I think this is a point in the album where I get nothing new musically, and it starts to really bug me in the musical sense. I couldn't believe this was a single, in all honesty. It's not until the second half or maybe even the final third of this song that it really finds legs for me and gets running. With maybe something a little bit new, but this one has never been the one for me. I know I'm in the minority. I understand, but I there's so much better music on this album than this. And I have a hot tea take later of what I think should have come instead of this. But again, I know I'm in the minority. I got to be honest. This one, and I try to be as critically open as I can, but this one it doesn't do it for me. In fact, it does the opposite. It peeves me because it feels redundant.
Is this your gun to the head on the album?
You know what? I didn't think I had one, but yeah, if gun to the head, I have to go this.
I'm
That's tough to say. That's tough to say because I'm coming off a whim on the gun to the head. Yeah, it's not the one for me. Not the one for me.
That is a hot tea take. I don't think it's the best here, but
Yeah.
it's a good song. Wow, I'm pretty surprised to hear that. Okay.
That's all musically though.
Yeah.
I dig the story. I understand she's a cool writer when it comes down to it, and there's definitely love stories throughout this. But I mean, again, there's love stories throughout this, and this one doesn't do it for me like the other ones do.
That is, I mean, to each their own. But we're gonna go in a bit of a more literal direction with the next track, which is My Boy Builds Coffins. Florence said this song actually was literal. She was dating a guy in the band Deludes, and he planned to build a coffin for the cover of his EP. So, okay. She did note that this was one of, if not the first song that the band actually wrote together, which is cool. I am glad that they came together on this track, but I don't think it's as interesting musically as a lot of the other songs here. I don't dislike it, but it's definitely in the lower half of this album for me.
This is where we started to vary. We were very close. I love this sound. In fact, this is the new addition to the sound that I've heard on this album that I was looking for at this point. We get this quick third person poetry run here, and it's tight. It's super tight. It's super on point. I dig this song. I think it brings this album back up to where I'm like, okay, they're not done with ways to impress me as far as their musicality goes. I dig this one. I love the way she sings this one too. There's this quaint sort of like, I looked it up and hopefully I'm not wrong, but it seemed to me like an old English chant, or like an old folky nursery rhyme, and I dug that. I like the sound of this one.
Okay,
Hopefully we're not getting too far away from each other here, but yeah.
I think I might be reading your mind though for the next one. You've been hinting about a song you think should have been a single.
Damn right.
And I have a feeling it might be track 11, Hurricane Drunk.
Damn right.
Okay, I'm glad I was right. So it's a response to heartbreak and how freeing it can be because you're going out and getting, drinking till you die, Hurricane Drunk. I really like the juxtaposition of the gospel influence sound and I'm gonna drink myself to death. I really enjoy that. Again, a really cool, unique, somewhat British soul influenced song. I can definitely hear a big like Amy Winehouse, Duffy influence on this one more than any song on the album, and I'm digging it. I think that this band pulls it off very well.
Yeah, I love this. I can't get over how great, to use your words, come together on this one. It really sings almost like another new addition. I'm not saying almost. It's another new addition to this sound. It doesn't go off brand. It doesn't go too off brand, is what I'm saying. It gives us a new look at what they can do, especially on this debut album. This one got snubbed from what I was reading. Like it was
Yeah.
going to be a single, and then it got snubbed by a re-release of Dog Days. But in my opinion, this should have been Cosmic Love spot for a single. If you're picking fourth or fifth out here, go for it. Unfortunately, this one didn't see the light of day as a single, and it's such a passed over gem in my opinion on this album.
I would have to agree. I do think this should have been a single at some point. Dog Days definitely did need the re-release to help the band go into the stratosphere, but it should have been thought of earlier, because at this point in the album, not always is track 11 a highlight on an
Agreed.
album, but it is
Agreed.
here.
Agreed.
They're bringing it home here, and we're getting to that finale with track 12, the penultimate track of the standard edition, at least, which is Blinding, another very gothic tune. And I think she's in her element here. This is just a neat ballad, and it's a blinding love. She's doing what she does best, and it has this looping sound to it production wise that typically I would find kind of annoying and repetitive. But for this song, I think it works because it matches what she's singing about. I don't know if it's quite a single worthy track, but I really like what they did here, and I feel like it's a very good second to last track on the album. We're getting close to the finish line, and this is a good summation somewhat of where we've been, while also being a unique tune in its own right.
Yeah. For me, this is penultimate defined because you open with, especially for them and the way their sound went here, we go back to this gothic, haunting composition, and you open with that. You open with this subdued orchestration and build into the Florence and the Machine sound slowly while keeping this gothic feel, keeping this, it almost feels like it's behind the door, the rest of their music or the finale of this album from me musically here, and I dig that. Really cool sound. I'm with you. I don't know if it's a single worthy. I guess they can't all be singles, but this is a really cool, powerful way to build up to the outing for your debut album.
Most definitely. But interestingly, this band chose to close out their debut album with a cover. This song is You've Got the Love. This was a 1986 tune by The Source featuring Candy Staton, re-released a couple times in the 90s. This was a huge hit in the UK, and Florence Welch said it was one of her favorite songs growing up, so she really wanted to cover it. And it was in that for more a dance house song of its era. This is the Florence and the Machine version with the harp. It has the same structure to it, but it's done Florence and the Machine style, and it's awesome. They own this song. I think this is better than the original for sure. I sought that one out after, and no offense to Candy Staton, but Florence Welch took your song and sang circles around you on it. That's all I have to say about it. And it was a hit again for Florence and the Machine as well. Top 5 hit in the UK and made a few alternative charts in the US. Still a beloved song and a live favorite, understandably. Just what a beautiful tune. And this just shows the talent behind this band by making a cover their own. Truly.
And such a beloved cover. For me, it was on paper. When I read that, I was like, man, that's a huge statement. That is a ballsy statement, and it could blow up in your face ultimately, especially as the ending of your debut album. I'm 100% with you. They murdered this. They took it to the next level. It is really done with passion. It's done with such passion that you can feel that it's her favorite song growing up. You can feel the love on this song, not without making a pun. It's got the love here, and her naked vocals at the beginning of this song, like it might be, and I should have went back and checked this now that I think about it, but it might be one of the only tracks that we get like a full single sound Florence. There, it doesn't seem like there's any overdubbing of her vocals in the start of the song, and it gives me goosebumps. I really love it. This is the way you go out on a debut album, with such a beloved cover, and you took it to the next level. They knew exactly what they had here, and a really great choice for a finisher from me.
Most definitely. And that concludes the album, but so here's where it gets a little tricky. There's more than one deluxe edition of the album, and there is a seems to have been an ultimate 10th anniversary one with a total of 24 tracks. Not all of them are separate songs. Some of them are alternate versions of songs we've previously discussed. A couple of them are covers, but I know there were a couple, Cory, that you told me you really did want to talk about that you remember fondly.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few. Just remember being there. I guess I did have the deluxe of this, or I'd just been going back and forth. And there is a few. The track that comes right after this, as a standalone, swimming, is one worth listening to. There's a few here. There's a few here. Have you listened to all of them?
I have, and I agree. Swimming definitely is. It was an iTunes bonus track, and I think it should have been on the standard album. I do enjoy it more than some of those songs, and
Definitely not as an ender.
no, but
But it
it
definitely
should
could
have.
fit in the album.
Yes, yes, and the other one that you mentioned to me, this one really blew my mind. So I totally missed this song because of the movie it was in, apparently. So, Heavy in Your Arms
Yeah.
was a soundtrack single. It was in the third Twilight movie, Eclipse. So, my natural instinct was to avoid these movies like the plague. It did not sound appealing to me as a boy in middle school. But that movie came out during the summer of 2010, and I went on a camp field trip to go see this movie at the Maryland Science Center, and it was one of the best naps I ever had. I fell asleep during that movie, and there were some people trying to make fun of me. Oh, you liked the movie? I said, well, I don't know because I fell asleep during it, and this song must have been in it at some point because it was on the soundtrack, and I completely missed it. I didn't hear it until this year.
Yeah, well, this song is definitely not a sleep through song,
No.
in my opinion. This is more of, and again, in my opinion, this is more of a taste of what we get later with them. There's electronic production in this really synthesized sound, and I've always dug that. To be honest, I never knew it was in the Twilight joint, but they're just out of my realm of knowledge there. I could see it now,
It does
I could
make
see it fitting with
sense.
the gothic werewolves and vampires type deal. But on its own, it's a really beautiful song. I can see why they released it, but this is definitely a glimpse of what we get from Florence later on.
Yeah, and she actually said it was her first soundtrack song and she wanted to do it because it was a bit of a challenge. And this might just be me. Maybe I'm crazy in a weird way. This reminds me of one of the best soundtrack songs of the 90s, even though it's a bit more gothic. It does give me a bit of the vibes of Alanis Morissette's Uninvited.
Oh, I can see that. I can see you
Okay,
there.
I'm not crazy, but
Okay,
that
I
is a
like that.
compliment because
Yeah,
great song.
yeah, most
And this
def.
is a great song too. And the team told her, don't write a song with references to werewolves or vampires. You just got to get to the heart of the story. And she did that because she knew the book. And this is where I have a question for the people or whoever was behind this decision. So I was around. The Twilight films did have some hits on the radio, especially the Breaking Dawn movie. There were a couple big hits I found from that. And this is a better song than those hits. It's a much more interesting track. So I'm not understanding why this didn't get that kind of push. I feel like this should have been a bigger hit than Christina Perri's 1,000 Years. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, it's weird how it doesn't get pushed. I like that about her place in music. It's weird to say, but I enjoy that she's not super duper mainstream. Because it fits for me, it fits that kind of musicality. It sounds sort of snobbish when I say it like that, but
it makes sense though.
yeah, I dig that.
I
I dig the fact that she's not pushed
I
everywhere.
mean,
Not for
Christina.
her, but
I mean, Christina Perri needed the hit more because she's no Florence Welch, no disrespect, but she doesn't have that range.
there you go. There you go.
But I mean, yeah, I mean, Paramore had a big hit from the first one, Decode, and
yeah,
the Bruno Mars song "It Will Rain" that was huge, and I like Bruno Mars and I like that song, and it's a very top 40 friendly ballad. That's his game, especially at that time. That was his game. That was before he got really funky with us with our 24 karat magic. But yeah, just quality wise, this should have been a hit.
now I'm with you. It's a powerful song. It's a beautiful song too.
Yeah.
But
yeah, the other one that I did enjoy their cover of Robert Palmer's "Addicted to Love." I thought it was a neat stripped down take on one of the biggest hits of the 80s, one that I enjoy. So I enjoy. It's not as transcendent as "You've Got the Love," but it's a cool cover. I enjoyed hearing Florence take that one on.
That's what I was gonna say. It's cool, but don't get too crazy now. You killed it with your closer. Don't get too wild. We all love songs.
Yeah.
But it is a cool version. It is a neat little stripped down jam.
Yeah, very curious. Are there any others that you really liked on the deluxe, especially?
I think I'm going through them, just looking at them now, and I think that's about it. That sing out. I mean, "Falling" everyone loves, but
that's a good one. Yeah.
No, the rest are there to be enjoyed, but not inside of my thoughts on Florence as far as this album goes.
Yes. Yes, and that is a important point to remember. Sometimes less is more, and you gotta pick the most important songs.
True.
To make a cohesive album. That's a very important thing to remember. I think sometimes we're seeing that these days with artists just putting out every song, and not every song needs to be put out.
Exactly. We see it often too much.
it can be, but now we are at the end of our journey with Lungs. I think I know what your grade is, but tell it to us.
All right. Lungs, Florence and the Machine. In critical listening, it's wild to see how much of my enthusiasm for an album is dashed sometimes by going through it. And fortunately, this time it wasn't. There are small flubs here that I didn't realize back in the day, but it's nothing that crushes me as far as going through a debut album. And I had to remind myself a lot going through this critically that this is a debut album. And inside of that thought, this album rolls so well in introducing a new sound, introducing a unique sound from a unique band of artists. It really does a great job telling that story and showing who they are. There are points where I think it gets a tad bit redundant inside of a critical listening, and I said that throughout the podcast. But as far as putting their stamp on their music and getting it out, this one really sings correctly and is paced very well. This one, with all my accolades, this one still sits at just under a B plus. I'm going to give this a heavy, hearty B here. They have leaps and bounds to go after this, and this is a great springboard, not necessarily history making and mind blowing. But a great, intricate and musical sound. This one gets a heavy B from me.
I was expecting like an A or A minus. Wow, I have the exact same grade. I'm not familiar with the albums after this one. I haven't really delved into this band a ton. But yeah, I mean, it's a bit uneven. There are really high highs, and there's some other stuff that's just a lot more mid when you really listen to it critically. But it definitely serves as a great introduction to one of the most unique voices of the 21st century.
Yeah, man.
And I'm definitely glad that she has a place in music as we know it. So yeah, I'm with you. Heavy B, close to a B plus for me too.
Yep. That's the reality behind it. Beautiful album, but we got to keep it real.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Favorite, what's your choice cut?
All right, here's the deal. I've always loved Dog Days, but this run with this album brought me to my new favorite, and that's Girl with One Eye.
I
love
that's a
that
banger.
I love it so much.
Yeah. Dog Days is iconic. It's great. I gotta go with the cover. You've Got the Love.
Nice. That's a good one, man.
I
It's
got
powerful.
nothing
Powerful.
but love for that one.
Nice, nice, nice.
And there we have it, Florence and the Machine. And as we said, it is a prelude into next week because Florence and the Machine are featured on the track on the brand new album from none other than Turntables Tea favorite Taylor Swift. Her new album is called The Tortured Poets Department. And there's a duet with Florence and the Machine called Florida triple exclamation points. So
oh
yeah.
Man, I'm so glad to be totally in the dark here going into the listen. She's Hall of Fame here, so she better bring it the same as our other debut albums so far in these past couple months. Better bring it, girl.
The new ones, we have high standards for you, Taylor Swift. And I'm very excited to discuss it because there's always a lot to discuss with Taylor Swift and the discourse. And I've had some thoughts about even the lead up to this album that I've just been wanting to share. I've had quite a few. It's been a different era so far, as all the Taylor Swifts are called. It's been a little bit of a different era so far, so I'm excited to discuss it. And it is kind of a double album. We are going to be sticking to the standard track 16 songs because that's going to be more than enough for a full episode. We did that with Midnights, just did the standard edition. And we certainly will feel free to mention, like we did just today, any highlight bonus tracks that you may or may not want to check out. I did that with Midnights too. There were a few I said you got to do it. Because it's just a lot to get into. And we love you, Miss Taylor, but we're not just the Taylor Swift podcast. We're Turntables and Tea. So we got to do a lot of stuff here, you know?
Yep, that's how it goes.
Even with your 31 songs that you've given us. Oh, jeez.
We're going to do 16.
Yeah.
And if you blow us away, we'll do the other ones.
Yeah. Well, at least some of them will be mentioned when you blow us away. Don't worry. But yes, stay until then. You do not need to be a tortured poet to listen to Turntables and Tea. So just keep your lungs clear, stay calm, and we'll see you in less than a fortnight. Take care of yourselves.
Florida!